So I'm going to make a few remarks. We're going to show you a quick video, and then we'll go to questions. Okay, so first, let's talk about some numbers of the report we're just passing out today. Roughly $723 million are collected from the 435 TIFs in Chicago and suburban Cook. That's 435 TIFs, $723 million. 12% roughly of the parcels in Cook County are in TIFs. About 12% of the parcels. Now, let's look at Chicago first. 154 TIFs in the city of Chicago. Chicago TIF revenue, $457 million. It's been right around that $500 million now for several years. So you can see, just in 2 years, that could be $2 billion. So it's a lot of money we're talking about. It's up slightly, but less than 1%, which is important because the last couple of years there's been a decline for the obvious reasons. The total Chicago revenue so far collected from TIF since its founding in 1986 is $5.5 billion. That's gone in TIFs. That doesn't mean it's all been spent. It just has gone into the TIFs. There's no new TIFs this year, and 9 have been canceled. So there's actually a decrease in the number of TIFs in the city of Chicago. Suburban Cook, for a moment, 281 TIFs. The revenue, $266 million in. This is all in your reports, by the way, so you don't have to write it all down. Now, in suburbs, they're down 3% from last year's $275 million. So decline in the suburbs slightly. And 69% now of all suburban towns have at least one TIF. So you see actually a growth in the suburbs, a decline in the city, at least in the number of TIFs. The suburbs have 8 new TIFs, and 11 have been either canceled or had some parcels removed. That's in suburbs. Okay, now I'm going to make a few comments about TIFs, particularly in Chicago, where they tend to be a little more controversial overall. As you may know, 3 years ago, I called for a moratorium on new Chicago TIFs. And I am pleased that the stampede has slowed down. We called for the TIF because we wanted time for the new administration to review these issues and to provide more transparency, and the public could have a great understanding of how all this money is being spent. Now, the city, I believe, is making some headway. For example, there have been no new TIFs. Okay, they've had time to review some things, canceled 9 of the TIF districts, not added any new ones, and they're posting more TIF information online. Also for us in the clerk's office, I think there's an improved dialogue. They're open to suggestions that we've been giving them about transparency, and hopefully some of those ideas will be implemented. So for at least us as an office, I think there's ongoing good communications. But there is enormous room for improvement in accountability and the balance of how these TIF funds are spent, particularly when so many of the tax dollars are targeted for downtown. Like many of you, I have many ideas for making TIFs more transparent, easy to understand. Here's just a few. I'd like to see a comprehensive report excuse me, on all Chicago TIFs, which would detail things like this. How much of that $5.5 billion spent to date has been spent? I'm sorry. How much of the $5.5 billion that has been collected has been spent? How much of it's clearly earmarked for a project? Because remember, these many years these TIFs have, up to 23 years, in some cases longer. How much is encumbered for a specific project? How much has been ported? Now, just make sure everybody understands that. There's a law which allows, if TIFs touch each other, that's why we put other maps on the mail or on the wall. Excuse me, if TIFs are touching each other, it can actually move TIFs from one to another. It's another thing that needs a lot of scrutiny. I know it causes great frustration for the aldermen that don't usually complain too much. But so that porting has been very critical to the city. It's a way to accumulate lots of money if you want a project in one TIF, but you don't have enough money. Also, to break down the distribution of dollars by project type, schools, parks, libraries, infrastructure, all these things will be very important, because what we're looking for as we try and make these tough judgments about are we spending the money as wisely as we should we cut back on more TIFs, should there be greater surpluses, to go back to the other taxing bodies, we want more information, and we want it so it's easily understandable. For example, we closed down the Central Loop TIF. I'd love to have something which really spent how we spent that, I don't know, $1.5–2 billion. Okay. A lot of those went, an awful lot of buildings up and down Michigan, Wacker and so forth, State Street, benefited from these TIFs. Okay, is that clear to the public? Why and what other benefits it brought us? Next, I urged the mayor and city council to declare a TIF surplus as soon as possible so that Chicago Public Schools can get much needed infusion of money. Now, one of the things we pushed for way back in the moratorium is since we did believe at that time that too many TIFs did not have really elaborate programs, and given that we had so many crises with other taxing bodies, we encouraged, like many aldermen, to have TIF surpluses. The previous mayor did that for a couple of years. The present mayor has done that. We have every reason to believe the mayor is going to do that again this year. We just would like to see that speeded up, given because the crisis in the schools, and this is certainly not all the city's fault or the Board of Education's fault, but there really is a crisis. It comes out every day about, schools are going to be missing this, whether it's art, music, all sorts of programs. So it'd be nice, the sooner the better, to make surplus funds available. Last year, Chicago returned $10.5 million in surplus funds to CPS. I would hope they could do much more this year. How do you explain to the kids in many of these schools that gym, music, art, other kinds of things are canceled while profitable businesses, and we respect those businesses, but while profitable businesses downtown receive 25, 30, 40, 50 million, whatever, to help their development? That's a hard explanation. TIFs have no doubt over the last 10, 20 years helped to make downtown Chicago look good. And people were proud of that, part of the move toward a global city, part of increasing tourism. The question really is not enough is being done in the neighborhoods. And that's a classic battle, and all I can suggest is I think that's where the battleground is. I think that's where the public dialogue needs to be. For example, there's 154 TIFs, but 12 of them in the downtown area collected 1/3 of all the tax revenue this year. Now, we're glad, certainly, we're glad that that revenue is coming in some of these big downtown TIFs. The real question is, should all that be money spent there? Many of us here can appreciate the downtown is always vital to any city. But again, if you're in a neighborhood, you're in Englewood and you're saying, I'm not sure how the new Sears building or the new Sears arrangement or this arrangement or other big corporations, I'm not sure how giving money to those, quote, blighted areas, which many people would love to live in, helps me. Because remember, the neighborhoods, the biggest problems are, well, public schools, housing, particularly the affordability of housing, particularly the enormous foreclosure problem, crime and so forth that we unfortunately see about all the time, and other certain kind of infrastructure things. So that is why this debate is so important, and that's why we do appreciate, we think the city is going to be providing more information, but not quite there yet. A couple other announcements. First of all, tax bills, I'm pleased to say, we will now be able to put more TIF information on the tax bills, starting with the second installment next year, which comes out next summer. It's been a very difficult, very complicated project, but so what it means is taxpayers, come next year when they look at their bill, can actually see, okay, well, this dollar amount for public schools, this dollar amount for City of Chicago, Park District, and this much money going into the TIF. Okay. Now, people still today, we've been able to have a website where they can look up this information. But starting for the next August's tax bill, that people will be able to actually see those dollars so they can compare it with other taxing bodies, how much they get. The other thing, which is important to us, is that the video we're going to show. It's a short video, but nowadays with modern communications and the fact that we can get a lot of people to go to our website, we can try and help explain. A brief informational video called Understanding TIFs. We try to explain how TIFs work, share some of the successes. We also raise some of the challenges or controversies that are common among TIFs. So if you don't mind, we're going to show this TIF video quickly, which we'll be able to show to lots of people on our own website, and then we can take questions.